Long before there were temples, before there were priests, before there was even what we would call religion, there was the shaman. A figure standing alone at the edge of the fire, robed in the skins of animals, eyes turned towards something the rest of the tribe could not see. He was not yet a healer in the sense we use the word. He was something stranger and considerably older, a man who had died and come back, a man who had lost his soul and found it again, and in that finding learned that he could now find the souls of others. To speak of the shaman is to speak of the deepest layer of the human psyche. It is to descend beneath civilization, beneath philosophy, beneath even mythology, into the place where the first images were born. The shaman is not merely a character from prehistory. He is an archetype. He lives in us still. And every great spiritual tradition, every form of psychotherapy, every priesthood, every art of healing, traces its lineage back to him, whether it remembers him or not. Mircea Eliade, who devoted his life to understanding these archaic figures, defined the shaman as a master of ecstasy. Not ecstasy in the worn modern sense, the trivial sense of pleasure, but in its older and more terrible meaning. Ecstasis, to stand outside oneself, to leave the body, to enter another order of reality and return with knowledge that cannot be acquired any other way. The shaman, Eliade tells us, is the great specialist of the soul. He alone, as the old phrase has it, sees its form and its destiny, and the soul, in the shamanic worldview, is something that can be lost. This is perhaps the most important idea we must recover. Because the disease the shaman treats is one we still suffer from, we have only renamed it. The shamans of Siberia, of the Arctic, of the Amazon, of the African plains, all spoke of a peculiar sickness. It was not a disease of the body. It was not, strictly speaking, a disease of the mind. It was a disease of the soul. The soul had wandered away. It had been stolen or frightened off, or had become lost in the wilderness of the other world. The person who suffered this was still alive. They still walked, still ate, still spoke. But something essential had departed. They were hollow. They moved through their days like a shadow of themselves. They felt no joy, no meaning, no connection to anything. They were, in the most literal sense, dispirited. The modern world has a different vocabulary for this. We call it depression. We call it anxiety. We call it burnout, alienation, anhedonia. We give it pharmaceutical names and clinical codes. And yet, when we read the descriptions left to us by the old shamans, we recognize our own ailment with uncomfortable precision. The loss of soul, the hollowness at the center of a life that, from the outside, appears intact. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He understood that the diseases of the modern soul were not new. They were ancient. He believed that the great religions, which had once spoken to these depths, had grown anemic. The gods had withdrawn from the rivers and the forests and the mountains. They had been driven underground into the unconscious, where we now fool ourselves that they lead an ignominious existence among the relics of our past. And we, in our pride, in our worship of what Jung called the goddess reason, had convinced ourselves that we had conquered nature, when in truth, we had merely lost contact with her. We had lost contact with ourselves. The shaman's medicine, then, is not a relic. It is a forgotten language for something we still desperately need to say. The shaman is not born. The shaman is made. And the making is rarely gentle. In the traditional accounts, the call to become a shaman almost never arrives as an invitation. It arrives as a wound. A young person falls violently ill, sometimes for years. They have visions, they hear voices, they wander into the forest and cannot say where they have been. Their family despairs of them. Ordinary medicine fails. And then, slowly, the truth becomes unavoidable. This is not an ordinary sickness. The spirits are calling. The pattern is not strange. It is universal. The call to the inner journey, in every culture that has bothered to record it, arrives through crisis, through illness, through loss, through some breaking of the ordinary world that cannot be repaired by ordinary means. The alchemists called it the nigredo, the blackening, the dark night, where everything that one had been is dissolved and putrefied so that something new can emerge. Jung called it the confrontation with the unconscious. Joseph Campbell, after studying the world's mythologies, called it the call to adventure, the rupture that begins the hero's journey. The aspiring shaman cannot run. The sickness pursues him until he turns and faces it, and in the moment he stops running, the initiation begins. He is taken, in vision, into the lower world. The spirits come for him. They strip the flesh from his bones with iron hooks. They eat his organs, hold his heart in their black hands, count each bone laid bare on the floor of the underworld. Sometimes a bone is found to be missing, or a bone is found that should not be there, and this discovery is the proof of his calling. His skull is opened. His eyes are taken out and replaced with the eyes of an animal. He watches all of this happen to him as if from a great distance, and he cannot make it stop. And then, somehow, in some way the traditions never fully explain, he is put back together. The bones are rejoined, the flesh returns, the heart is placed in its cavity. But he is not the same. The body that walks out of the underworld is not the body that walked in. He has been remade in the dark. This is not a metaphor that the shamanic cultures invented for poetic effect. It is the experience itself, undergone in trance, recounted with terrible vividness in account after account across continents that had no contact with one another. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest collaborator, observed that this archetype of symbolic dismemberment and reassembly is the foundation of all genuine inner transformation. The ego that we were must die. There is no shortcut around this. The new personality cannot simply be appended to the old. The old must be broken open. The shadow must be eaten. The bones must be counted, one by one, by hands that are not our own. What the shaman undergoes in vision, the analysand undergoes on the couch. What the mystic undergoes in the desert, the artist undergoes before the empty canvas. The form changes. The substance does not. To understand what happens in the shamanic initiation, we have to understand the geography of the world the shaman travels through. Because this geography is not random. It is the geography of the psyche itself. The shamanic cosmos has three worlds. Above us, the sky realm, where the gods reside and where consciousness shines in its purest form. Below us, the underworld, where the dead dwell, where the ancestors live, where the buried things of the earth give up their secrets to those who descend with the courage to ask. And in between, the middle world, which is our ordinary daylight reality, the world of human affairs, the world we think we live in. These three worlds are connected by an axis, a pillar, a mountain, a tree. The axis mundi, the center of the cosmos. In the Norse tradition, this axis is Yggdrasil, the great ash whose branches hold the 9 worlds and whose roots reach down into wells of memory, of fate, of poison. The tree drinks from all 3 worlds. It is fed by serpents at its base and by eagles at its crown, and the squirrel Ratatoska runs between them, carrying their insults up and down its trunk. When Yggdrasil trembles, the world is ending. In Siberia, the axis is the world pillar, smoke-blackened, climbed by the shaman in ecstatic ascent. In countless other cultures, it is the world tree whose crown brushes the heavens and whose roots reach into the abyss. And here, Jung gave us a phrase that captures the entire mystery in a single line. "No tree," he said, "can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." This is the whole secret. The height is purchased by the depth. The light is paid for by the descent. The shaman cannot ascend to the sky and bring back the visions of the gods unless he first descends into the underworld and meets what is buried there. Anyone who promises you the ascent without the descent is selling you something other than truth. The descent comes first. And what the shaman meets in the descent is what we, following Jung, would call the shadow. Everything we have refused, everything we have buried, everything in ourselves that we have declared unworthy, shameful, dangerous, evil, the shadow waits below, and it grows in proportion to our denial of it. Refused, it becomes a monster. Recognized, it becomes, slowly, an ally. There is an old teaching, attributed variously to the Cherokee and to many other traditions, that two wolves live inside every person, one dark and one light, and that the one which wins is the one we feed. But the deeper teaching, the one the shamans have always known, goes further. If we feed only the light wolf, the dark wolf does not starve. He waits. He grows hungry and bitter in the basement of the soul. And one day, when our defenses slip, he comes upstairs and tears our life apart. The shadow must be met. It must be fed. Not indulged, but acknowledged. Brought into the light of awareness, where it loses its compulsive power. Robert Johnson, the Jungian analyst, observed something I find more disturbing than almost anything else in the depth psychological literature. He noted that people resist the gold in their shadow more strenuously than they resist its darkness. We are willing, eventually, to admit our cruelty, our envy, our pettiness, but to admit our hidden greatness, our unlived genius, the holiness we have refused to claim, this terrifies us beyond reckoning. Because to own the gold in the shadow is to be responsible for it. And responsibility is the heaviest weight the soul can carry. The shaman, in the underworld, learns to carry it. In the underworld, the world is inverted. The dead live there in a kind of mirror of the living. The trees grow downward, their roots in a sky that does not exist. The rivers flow backward. The sun rises where it should set, and the moon hangs in the wrong quarter of a sky that is not really a sky at all. Time itself runs in another direction. To reach this realm, the shaman must cross water. There is always water. A black river, a freezing sea, a lake the color of old blood. He builds a spirit canoe and pushes off from the shore of the living world, and the current that takes him is not the current of any river that exists on a map. He passes through banks of mist that have voices in them. He hears his own name spoken from the water. He sees, drifting past him in the dark, the bodies of those who attempted the journey before him and did not return. Some of them still move, some of them reach for the canoe as it passes. The shaman does not stop. On the far shore he is met by figures who are not human and have never been human. They take him through corridors of bone. They show him the great forests where the souls of the dead wait for whatever comes next. They show him the cave mouths from which sickness emerges into the upper world. And eventually, they bring him before something older and larger than any of them, something he cannot afterward describe in words his tribe will understand. And this, something, teaches him. Everything he believed about himself is inverted there. The qualities he thought were strengths reveal themselves as defenses. The achievements he was proud of look hollow. The people he loved, he discovers, he also resented. The people he hated, he discovers, he also needed. The order of the ego, painstakingly constructed over decades, comes apart, and what remains is something rawer, older, more honest, and considerably more frightening than anything he has ever met. The neophyte must pass through this. He must navigate the Black River. He must walk past the bones of those who failed. He must endure being unmade. We who do not live in shamanic cultures undergo this anyway. Every one of us, the midlife crisis, the breakdown, the loss that we cannot recover from, the depression that will not lift, the relationship that ends and takes our identity with it. These are the modern forms of the descent. We just do not have shamans to walk with us through them. We have, at best, therapists, at worst, prescription pads and self-help books and the desperate suggestion that we simply try harder. The way out is through. The only path is down, into the dark, into the place where the soul has gone, and we must follow it there. It looks like death. It feels like death. But it is the death of an old self, so that a larger self may be born. And on the other side of it, if we survive, we are not the same person who began. We have learned the secret language of the spirits, which is to say, we can now hear what the unconscious has been trying to tell us for years. We have access to layers of the psyche that were closed to us before. We have, in some measure, become whole. After the descent comes the ascent, and the ascent has its own dangers. Once the shaman has been remade in the underworld, his journey is not finished. He must climb. He must ascend the world tree. He must pass through the branches into the sky realm, where the eternal sun burns and the gods speak in their own tongue. He must enter, as the traditions put it, through the sun door, the gateway to the realm where consciousness is awake without sleep, where vision is unmediated, where the source itself can briefly be glimpsed. The shaman often takes the form of a bird for this ascent. An eagle, in many traditions. The eagle who flies higher than any other creature, who can look directly at the sun without being blinded, who carries in its body the secret of solar consciousness. The shaman becomes the eagle. He returns, as the old myths say, to the Sun Father. What is being described here, in psychological terms, is the second half of individuation. The first half was the encounter with the shadow, the integration of the dark. The second half is the encounter with what Jung called the self, the totality of the psyche, the inner sun whose light is the light of meaning itself. The shaman, having made friends with the dark, now turns toward the light, and the light, having been earned through the dark, no longer blinds him. But there is a temptation here, and it is perhaps the most dangerous temptation on the entire path. The temptation is to stay. The sky realm is beautiful, the vision of unity, the dissolution of the ordinary self into something vast and luminous, the sense of having transcended the petty concerns of ordinary life. Many seekers, having achieved a glimpse of it, never want to come back. They want to remain in the visionary state. They want to live forever in the company of the gods. The shaman knows that this would be a kind of death, and a worse death than the first one, because the shaman is not called to escape the world. He is called to serve it. His ecstatic journey has a purpose, and the purpose is the community. The vision must be brought back. The medicine must be delivered. The soul that was retrieved in the underworld must be returned to the sick person who lost it. If the shaman remains in the sky, he becomes useless. He becomes the shadow of his own calling, the mystic who has nothing to give, the guru lost in his own light, the man who has seen God and forgotten his neighbor. The return is mandatory. The return is the test. And it is the return that separates the true shaman from the charlatan, the true healer from the inflated one, because power on this path is real. The shaman acquires real power, and the temptation to misuse it is enormous. Jung warned about a particular kind of inflation that happens to therapists, priests, and anyone who works in the field of healing. They begin to identify with the archetype of the healer itself. They forget that they are a vessel through which the healing flows. They begin to believe that they are the source. And when that happens, they become dangerous. They become the black magician, the shadow form of the shaman, who uses his knowledge of the soul not to liberate others, but to bind them. The traditional shamanic initiations are so brutal, so prolonged, so designed to break the candidate's ego, precisely because this temptation must be defeated before the power is granted. The shaman must be humble, or the power will destroy him, and destroy those who come to him for help. There is no version of this path in which the ego survives intact and the gift remains pure. The cultures that produced shamans understood this. They built their initiations accordingly. We have largely forgotten this. We want the gold without the descent. We want the vision without the dismemberment. We want the authority of the healer without the years of being broken open. And so we produce, in great numbers, people who claim shamanic gifts and have no idea what they are talking about. The traditional cultures had a word for these people. It was not a kind word. There is one more figure we must meet. His name has echoed through every page so far, though we have only just now spoken it. He is the wounded healer. In the Greek tradition, his name was Asclepius, the god of medicine, who was himself born from a wound cut from the womb of his dying mother. His temples were places where the sick came, not just to be cured, but to dream. The patients slept in the temple, and in their sleep they received visions, and in the morning the priests interpreted the visions, and the cure was given. The treatment came from the unconscious itself, mediated by a tradition of priests who knew how to listen to it. But Asclepius had a teacher, and the teacher carries the deeper secret of this archetype. His name was Chiron. He was a centaur, half man and half horse, but unlike his savage brothers, he was wise, gentle, learned in the arts of music and medicine and prophecy. Born of a god and immortal by inheritance, he became the great tutor of heroes. Achilles studied at his feet, Jason, Heracles himself. And it was Heracles, in the end, who wounded him. A poisoned arrow, intended for another centaur, struck Chiron in the thigh. The poison came from the blood of the Hydra, a substance for which no cure existed. And here the myth becomes terrible. Because Chiron was immortal, he could not die from the wound. He could not be released by death. He carried the agony, undiminished, day after day, year after year, forever. The greatest healer in the world, the teacher of healers, possessed a wound he could not heal in himself. He limped through the rest of his existence in pain that would not end. This is the archetype in its purest form. The wound that cannot be cured. The wound that becomes, precisely because it cannot be cured, the source of the healer's power. Chiron healed others not despite his wound, but through it. The pain was the teacher. The pain made him recognize in every sufferer who came to him a fellow citizen of the same country. Eventually, in some versions of the myth, Chiron found his peace. He traded his immortality with Prometheus, the great gift-giver, who was himself chained to a rock and tortured. Chiron took on Prometheus's mortality so that Prometheus could be free. And only then, having given up his deathlessness, could Chiron at last die. This is what the shaman knows in his bones. The healer is the one who has been wounded and who has refused to deny the wound. He has learned, instead, to let the wound become the door through which compassion enters. Without the wound, there is no entry. Without the entry, there is no healing. The unwounded helper helps no one, because he stands outside the country of suffering and only points at the map. The wounded healer is in the country. He has the geography in his body. A healer who has not been wounded cannot heal. He can prescribe. He can give advice from a textbook. He can offer the theoretical comforts that all professions develop. but he cannot meet the suffering person at the place where the suffering actually is. To meet someone in their darkness, you must know your own darkness, and to know your own darkness, you must have walked into it without a flashlight and learned to see in the absence of light. Only the wounded physician heals. Jung said this, and he said it because he had lived it. Between 1913 and 1916, Jung underwent his own descent. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious. He was nearly destroyed by it. He saw visions of seas of blood drowning Europe. He met inner figures who spoke to him with their own voices and refused to be controlled. He spoke with a wise old man named Philemon, who came to him in his garden and explained things that Jung's conscious mind could not have explained to itself. For 3 years, he stood at the edge of madness. And then, slowly, he came back. He came back changed, and the work he produced afterward, the work that gave us analytical psychology, was the medicine he had brought home from the underworld. The descent was not a breakdown, it was an initiation, and what came back from it was the work. The shamans of the old world believed that the cosmos itself was awake, that every river, every animal, every stone, every star held within it a particle of the same intelligence that lived in the human heart. They called this anima mundi, the soul of the world. They were not wrong, exactly. They were speaking a language we have not yet relearned how to hear. The modern world has cut itself off from this. We have made ourselves small in the name of being scientific. We have decided that meaning is a private illusion, that the universe is dead matter, that the gods are projections, that the dreams which used to come to us in the night are merely the digestive noises of the brain. The temples have been turned into clinics. The priests have become prescribers. And the gods, exiled from the rivers and the forests, take their revenge in symptoms we cannot name. The shaman would know what is happening. He would say that the soul has gone wandering and no one has been sent to retrieve it. He would say that the axis mundi has been forgotten and the 3 worlds no longer speak. He would say that we have lit a fire on the floor of the temple and burned the temple down and now stand shivering in the cold ash, calling this progress. He would not be wrong. The shaman is still there. He has not gone away. He has only changed his clothes. Sometimes he wears a lab coat, sometimes a clerical collar, sometimes the quiet office of an analyst and a notebook in which strange dreams are written down. Sometimes he is a writer, a poet, an artist who knows that the image came from somewhere and refuses to lie about where. Sometimes he is no one in particular, a friend who has gone through something and come back and who can therefore sit with you in your own darkness without trying to fix you, because he knows that the darkness is not a problem to be solved, but a country to be crossed. What he offers in every form is the same thing the old shamans offered: the testimony that the journey can be made, that the descent does not have to be the end, that the soul can be retrieved, that the bones can be reassembled, that what feels like death is, sometimes, the door. The shaman does not heal you. The shaman only walks part of the road with you. The healing, when it comes from a place older than either of you. The fire is still burning at the edge of the world. The drum is still being struck. The Black River is still rising to meet whoever walks down to its shore. The question is not whether you will be called. The question is whether you will recognize the call when it comes, and whether, when you do, you will be brave enough to step into the canoe.